The wedding invite came in a generic cream envelope, with no handwriting, just printed block letters. It looked more like a summons than an invitation. No, "Hey Claire, I would love to see you there." Or even a basic RSVP card. Just a time, date, and location, like I was being scheduled for jury duty. And printed in italic font at the bottom. Dress code formal. Military attire not recommended. That wasn't a request, it was a warning. Lena always had a flair for passive aggression. She's the kind of woman who writes Instagram captions with just enough venom to keep things legally nice. So I wasn't surprised. But it still hit differently. I hadn't heard from her in over a year, not a birthday text or a death in the family kind of courtesy call. And now I get this? For her wedding? To Miles Connolly, of all people. My former subordinate. I hadn't seen him since the day he was medically evacuated out of Mosul. And now he's marrying Lena? You'd think a woman marrying someone I once commanded would maybe acknowledge that I exist. Not. She figured I'd either be too busy deployed or embarrassed to attend. She's always liked to pretend my career was some long, sad phase. Military service was a detour from real life, not something that saved mine. I didn't respond. Not immediately. I left the envelope on my desk for days, unopened. It sat under a stack of logistics briefs and intel memos like it didn't belong because it didn't. My mother didn't call either. She was listed as Vivian Maddox on the invite, not Mom. Guess we're formal now. She probably helped design that cold little card. I could almost hear her voice when I read military attire not recommended, as if my showing up in uniform might infect the air with too much discomfort. 2 days later, I got an email. Not from Lena. From Miles. It was short. 10 words, total. If you come, I'll finally get to say thank you. That was it. No greeting, no name, no emojis or pleasantries. Just that one line. I read it 4 times. And then I went to the closet, pulled down my dress blues, and laid them flat on the bed. You can mock a title, you can ignore a rank. But you don't get to rewrite the truth, not when you owe your life to it. If you've ever had someone try to erase your worth just because it makes them feel bigger, leave a comment. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. It keeps these voices alive. I didn't RSVP. I booked a flight. I ran a morning briefing at Fort Belvoir the day before my flight. We were walking through a classified logistics failure in eastern Syria. It's one of those quiet breakdowns that don't make headlines but get people killed. I led the team. No one interrupted me. When I spoke, people listened. The major across the table referred to me as Colonel Maddox 3 times in 5 minutes. The junior officer beside him jotted every word like gospel. A civilian contractor even asked me to sign off on a route clearance matrix because I had still set the standard. That room knew who I was. They knew I'd been deployed 6 times, that I'd briefed Joint Chiefs, that I'd coordinated 3 extraction ops while under fire. And I had a Bronze Star that no one in my family ever asked about. My office wall held a framed citation. My mother once called it a waste of wood. When I graduated from OCS, Lena didn't show up. She said she had food poisoning. She posted beach selfies the same day. My mom said I was being dramatic. When I got promoted to major, they sent a cake. Not to me, to my dad's grave. So, no, I wasn't surprised they didn't list my title on the wedding invite. Or mention I was still on active duty. In their world, I was just Claire. The quiet one. The one who wore boots too often and mascara too rarely. The one who didn't cry at movies or smile on command. Not exactly bridesmaid material. But inside that room at Fort Belvoir, none of that mattered. Because inside that room, I wasn't the sister. I was the ranking officer. I gave orders. I signed approvals. I owned every damn square foot of that meeting. I left base that afternoon and drove straight to Reagan Airport. Didn't pack much. Just the dress blues, 2 changes of clothes, and one steel-edged sense of restraint. On the plane, I watched a couple argue 2 rows up. She was pissed he forgot his jacket. He blamed the airline. Petty. Loud. The kind of energy Lena thrived on. I wondered if she still yelled to win arguments. Or if she'd evolved into a woman who smiles while insulting you. When we landed, I turned on my phone and saw a text from a number I hadn't saved. See you soon. Hope you brought something fancy. No name. But I knew who it was. Lena still texted like she was the star of a reality show. Always a wink behind the words. Always assumed I'd play along. I didn't reply. The guy tried to upgrade me to a convertible at the rental counter. I asked for a standard sedan. He looked confused. I didn't explain. On the drive to the hotel, I passed a giant billboard that read, Charleston's most elegant wedding venues. Lena's face was on it. No joke. Her wedding was featured in a magazine months ago. She'd always wanted to be known for something big. I guess she got it. I checked into a modest hotel near the venue. Not the one the family reserved. That one had floral carpets and champagne check-ins. Mine had strong locks and blackout curtains. Priorities. I unpacked my dress blues and hung them by the window. They caught a sliver of afternoon light. Crisp. Sharp. They didn't apologize for taking up space. Neither would I. I woke up at 5 o'clock out of habit. No alarm. Just muscle memory from years of pre-dawn briefings and dusty airfields. The room was quiet, curtains sealed tight. But I didn't need light. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I opened the laptop, typed the airline code, and checked my return flight. Still flexible, still cancelable. I didn't cancel it. Not yet. Instead, I opened the email again. The one from Miles. If you come, I'll finally get to say thank you. Still 10 words. Still no punctuation. Still echoing. I hadn't replied. Part of me didn't want to give him the satisfaction. But another partone I don't like to admit exists wanted to know what he meant by finally. Miles had been under my command for 9 months. He wasn't flashy, but he followed orders. Reliable. Quiet. Took a piece of shrapnel to the thigh and never screamed. I signed his medical evac papers while blood soaked the floor of our convoy. His body left the base. My name stayed on the report. He never wrote. Never called. That was fine. It's not like I expected loyalty after rotation. Most soldiers move on. But marrying Lena? That took effort. I closed the laptop, dressed, and went downstairs to the hotel lobby. The coffee was burned, and the eggs looked like rubber, so I skipped both. Outside, the sky was gray. Still Charleston, but colder than I remembered. The wedding is in 2 days. Today was the welcome dinner. A casual pre-event for the VIP guests. Lena's words, not mine. I wasn't on the welcome list. I checked. I drove anyway. The venue was a plantation-style estate with a roundabout driveway and too many columns. A woman in a headset approached me before I got out of the car. Hi. Are you with the Henderson party? Number Maddox. She scanned her clipboard. Oh. Claire? I nodded. Your table's not set up yet. Would you mind waiting in the side garden? Side garden. Not the foyer, not the terrace. The garden. Where they parked the florists. I followed her through a hedged path and found a small bench next to a stone fountain shaped like a cherub peeing into a bird bath. Fitting. From there, I could see the main setup. Linen tables, string lights, waitstaff and bow ties. Lena stood near the arch, laughing too loud. She wore white. Not ivory, not champagne. Wedding white. Already dressed like the day was hers, even when it wasn't yet. Guests gathered like bees around her. My mother stood near a wine barrel, sipping slowly, head tilted just enough to look interested but not involved. That was her specialty, hovering without committing. I watched for 5 minutes before someone finally acknowledged me. It wasn't Miles. It was a teenage server offering me sparkling water and a plastic flute. He didn't even know my name. Back inside, the speeches started. One of Lena's friends stood up to discuss how inspiring it is when strong women finally find their match. Someone clapped like it was a TED Talk. I didn't sit at a table. I stood off to the side, behind a fern. A literal plant had a better view than I did. Then I saw him. Miles. Clean-shaven, broad shoulders, navy suit. He walked like he remembered drill soprite, contained, but with a soldier's edge. He wasn't wearing a wedding ring. Not yet. He moved through the crowd and said all the right things. Kissed my mother on the cheek, hugged Lena from behind. For a second, I thought maybe he'd look over. Maybe he'd notice I was there. He didn't. And that's when I walked out. Not because I was angry, because I didn't want to waste perfect boots standing on that soil any longer than I had to. I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I just left. But the moment I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. New email. Same sender. Subject line. You deserve better than this. Nobody text. No signature. Just that. It didn't fix anything. But it cracked something. I didn't reply. I opened my trunk and looked at my uniform. Still pressed. Still waiting. I drove back to the hotel silently, turned off my phone, and ironed every line of that uniform again. Every crease mattered. I wasn't going to speak. I was going to show up. The next morning, I wore civilian clothes. Not to hide, just to keep the uniform clean. Charleston looked the same. Old brick forced charm, and too many places were named after people who never apologized for owning others. I knew the roads, but nothing felt familiar. Like the town had moved on without me, or worse, didn't even notice I left. I drove past the house we grew up in. Still beige with dark green shutters, still pretending to be fancier than it was. The new owners had removed Mom's rose bushes and replaced them with white gravel and fake palm trees. Fitting. Pretty far away, dead up close. I parked in front for less than 10 seconds. Didn't turn off the engine. Didn't take a photo. Just stared at the porch where I once stood in my first uniform, waiting for someone to come outside. No one did then. No one would know. I pulled away and made my way to the wedding venue. This time, I walked in through the main entrance. No side gardens. No peeing cherubs. Just double doors and polished wood floors. A woman with a headset and clipboard intercepted me again. Different woman. Same headset. Hi, are you Claire Maddox? She blinked. Oh, okay, just give me 1 second. She stepped aside and whispered to someone through her earpiece. I didn't flinch. I think she's already here. I heard her say like I was a ghost that had snuck in early. Eventually, she led me down a side hallway and into a prep room. It looked like a repurposed wine cellar. 2 folding chairs, 1 fan, and no windows. Just hang tight here. We'll come get you when it's time. Or AT's time for what? For family photos. She left without waiting for me to respond. I didn't sit. I stood in the middle of the room and looked at the far wall where someone had hung a framed print of a vineyard. The frame was crooked. No water. No clock. No signal on my phone. Just me, a folding chair, and a cheap fan spinning like it owed someone money. After 20 minutes, the door opened. Lena walked in. Her hair was curled into soft waves. Her makeup looked like it cost more than my boots. She wore a white robe with bride stitched in gold thread. Her face froze the second she saw me. You're early. I'm on time. They brought me here. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it. Listen, Claire. I'm glad you came, but I need today to be smooth. No drama, no awkwardness. Just let this be about me, okay? It's your wedding. It's already about you. End quote. She smiled, the kind of smile you give someone before you cut them off in traffic. Exactly. So maybe, just this once, keep the uniform in the closet? I didn't answer. She didn't wait. She turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, you'll be sitting at table 14. It's near the back, but it's still technically in the tent. She opened the door and walked out. Table 14. Near the back. Technically inside. I almost laughed. A few minutes later, someone handed me a name tag. No title. Just Claire. Like I was a plus, one that barely made the list. The other guests arrived in waves. Big hats, big hair, bigger voices. Everyone was trying to look casual while scanning each other for weakness. My mother entered like a politician, shaking hands and smiling with only her mouth. When she saw me, her expression didn't change. She walked right past and complimented the centerpiece. Miles arrived last. Still no ring. Still no eye contact. I stood just inside the tent, holding a glass of flat champagne I didn't ask for, watching the people who were supposed to be my family treat me like someone who wandered in from the parking lot. A man with a camera started taking group shots. He pointed toward me, looked at his list, and lowered the camera. I wasn't on it. I stepped back and stood near the catering table. A server offered me shrimp. I declined. Then I looked up and saw Lena on stage, holding a mic and smiling directly at me. I didn't flinch. She smiled at me like we were co-stars in some Hallmark drama about sisterhood and forgiveness. A well-rehearsed performance. The kind where everyone claps no matter what you say because no one's listening. Lena tapped the mic. Hi everyone. Just a quick word before the rehearsal kicks off. I just want to thank all the people who've been with me since day one. The crowd did that polite wedding laugh. She held the pause like a pro. Family means everything, she continued, eyes sweeping over the room. Some people go far away for work or whatever, but they're still part of the journey, in their own little way. A few heads turned toward me. Not many. Just enough to feel the weight of being pointed at without a finger. I stood still, expression neutral. The kind of look you use in a debriefing when someone's trying to bait you into confirming something classified. Lena thanked the florist, her Pilates coach, her bridesmaids, and her incredible fiancé who never makes me feel like I need to be someone else. Another glance at me. Subtle as a sniper. People clapped again. The mic cut out with a pop. Someone handed her a glass of wine. She giggled and walked off the stage like she'd nailed a TED Talk. I walked to table 14. It was technically under the tent. Barely. We were right up against the edge, where the breeze leaked in and the DJ's speaker rattled from bass reverb. The tablecloth had a stain. My name card said, Claire, Noe, handwritten. Misspelled. On cheap cardstock. The other guests at the table didn't introduce themselves. One of them was a second cousin. The others looked like friends of the groom's extended family. All strangers. All talkative. They talked about real estate, crypto, Pilates, and someone's divorce that hadn't gone full TMZ yet. No one asked what I did. No one asked who I was. A woman across the table asked if I was one of the organizers. No, I said. I'm the bride's sister. She blinked. Oh, wow. I didn't know she had one. Most people don't. She didn't ask anything else. The food came late, cold chicken, lukewarm wine, and too many speeches. The sun dipped lower, and the tent lights kicked on soft glow, filtered joy. Someone tried introducing a game called How Do You Know the Couple? I excused myself before the mic reached our table. I stood near the fountain again. Same spot as yesterday. Same cherub, same feeling. That's when my mother approached. Claire. No smile, just my name, clipped and obligatory. Vivian. I didn't offer a hug. She looked around before speaking. Lena worked hard for this. I hope you're not here to ruin it. I didn't realize I had that much power. You know what I mean. She's been stressed. She's trying to keep it perfect. She can start by spelling my name right. She gave me a tight smile. You always take things personally. Number, I take things honestly. You should try it. Before she could respond, someone called her name from the tent. She left without another word. I stood alone for a few more minutes, then walked back inside. A man was giving a toast. Something about love, commitment, destiny. I tuned it out. Miles sat beside Lena now. His hand rested lightly on her leg. His body faced the crowd, but his eyes flicked toward me once. No expression, just a flash of recognition. I held his gaze. 1 second. 2. Then I looked away first. The server came around with dessert. Mini cakes in shot glasses. Mine was missing. When I asked, he said they'd run out. Of course, they had. I pushed my chair back and left again. This time, I didn't head for the fountain. I walked out to the parking lot and sat in my car. I didn't cry. I don't do that. But I let the silence hit me in the chest like it always does when you realize you can earn medals from your country and still not get a seat at your family's table. I watched guests trickle out after dessert. Laughter, heels clacking. Miles helps Lena into a car. He opened the door for her and then glanced back toward the lot. This time, he saw me. He didn't wave. Didn't nod. He stood there for a beat too long, then followed her inside. I drove back to the hotel without turning on the radio. When I got in, I hung the dress back in the closet and took out my uniform. I laid it on the bed. Smoothed every seam. Buttoned the collar. Checked for lint. Tomorrow, I won't be Claire, the sister. Or Claire, the background guest. Tomorrow, I'd be Colonel Maddox. The morning started the same way most missions used to. Quiet, cold, and clear. I showered, tied my hair back regulation, tight, and wore the dress blues. Every medal, every ribbon, every bar placed precisely where it belonged. That uniform did more than represent a career. It held every moment I'd bled for, led for, and nearly died for. It made people in power stop talking when I walked into a room. At home, it made them look the other way. I left the hotel without breakfast. I didn't need fuel. I needed clarity. The wedding ceremony was scheduled for noon. By then, the prep team was already scrambling. Ribbons being tied, chairs adjusted, florals refluffed by someone who hadn't seen a real crisis in her life. I parked out back and entered through the staff path. No one stopped me. The uniform did what it always did, cleared space. Inside, the coordinator was herding groomsmen like sheep. I stood off to the side. Eyes followed me for a second, then turned away, unsure if I was part of the ceremony or someone auditing it. That's when I saw him, Miles. In full tux. Standing near the altar, half distracted, talking to someone about timing and boutonnieres. I stayed back and watched the way he carried himself. The posture is still solid. Hands relaxed. But his jaw clenched every few seconds, like something was sitting behind his teeth and wouldn't come out. I didn't call out. I didn't need to. Because in that silence, the memory came back. We were 2 weeks into a surveillance op outside Haditha. The terrain was garbage. Communications are spotty. Half our convoy was stuck in a dried creek bed. Miles was part of the rear security element. I was the commanding officer. A local contact went dark. We shifted protocols. I gave the signal to reposition. He moved first. Stepped on a pressure plate. The improvised device, buried shallow, too crude for directional force but close enough to shred a man's leg from the inside. The blast flipped him backwards. The others froze. I didn't. I crossed 40 yards of open ground. No cover. No guarantee the area was clear. Pulled him back myself while laying down suppressive fire with one arm. My rifle jammed halfway through. Didn't matter. He was bleeding out. I stabilized him with a tourniquet I tied with my teeth. Carried him to the evac bird. He never passed out. Just stared up at me like he couldn't decide whether to curse or cry. Before they lifted off, he grabbed my wrist. Said nothing. Just held on. Back at the venue, Miles looked my way. Saw me. Saw me. He didn't nod. Didn't smile. But his jaw unclenched. Someone called his name. He turned. The moment passed. Guests started arriving. Bright dresses. Loud greetings. I kept my distance. They treated the ceremony like a red carpet, even tangles, laughs, too much perfume. A few people noticed me. A few whispered. One woman leaned into her husband's ear and said, "Is that security?" Lena came out 30 minutes before the ceremony. Full bridal mode. Lace everywhere. Veil long enough to trip over. Her heels clicked like warnings. She looked around, taking it all in, owning the space. Then she saw me. Her face didn't change. Not in front of her people. But I saw the way her shoulders locked. She returned to the officiant, gave instructions like she was conducting air traffic, and never looked at me again. The ceremony started, guests took their seats. The music cued. Lena walked down the aisle like she was stepping into royalty. All eyes are on her. I stayed standing. They made no mention of family. No welcome to the sister of the bride. No recognition of anything outside the script. They kept the camera on the couple, zoomed in tight, as if cropping the truth out of the frame made it less real. But when Miles took her hand, he looked out. Toward the rose. Toward me. No smile. Just presence. I didn't nod. Didn't blink. They said their vows. The crowd was awed. The rings were exchanged. Then the kiss. Applause. Music again. I stayed still. Because I knew what came next. As the guests began spilling out of the ceremony tent, I made my way along the edge, just another body in motion. I didn't rush, didn't angle for attention, but I didn't disappear either. The uniform made that impossible. A few people did double takes. One older man gave me a stiff nod, probably unsure if I was there to arrest someone or escort a senator. I nodded back. He moved on. At the entrance to the reception area, there was a table with place cards. Cream envelopes, elegant script, alphabetical order. I scanned the rows. Maddox. Maddox. Mad. Nope. I checked again. No, Claire. No Colonel. Not even a last-minute scribble on the corner. A woman in a navy jumpsuit leaned in beside me. Need help finding your card? I guess I'm not on the list. Oh. She smiled like someone trying not to laugh during a funeral. Maybe you're under +1 or miscellaneous. It happens. She turned away before I could correct her. I didn't bother. I walked past the table and headed toward the main tent. A man in a vest stopped me. Hicken, I see your table number? I wasn't given one. Oh, 1. Oh, okay. Hang on. He flipped through a clipboard that looked exactly like the ones I used to run troop manifests, except less efficient. Claire Maddox? I asked. He paused, then scanned faster. Not seeing that. Are you sure you're on the guest list? I'm the bride's sister. His face changed. Just slightly. Oh, okay, let me see. Table the 14th of May. That's by the rear speakers. Sure. He pointed vaguely toward the farthest corner of the tent, behind a row of ferns and a decorative photo wall that hadn't held a photo yet. Table 14 had no flowers, no candles, just 6 empty chairs, one broken. A server was stacking napkins on the edge like a prep station. I sat. No one joined me. Music started. The kind meant to make people think they're having fun. The staff flowed like synchronized swimmers. Glasses clinked. Laughter swelled. I sat. Back straight, fork untouched. Eyes steady. Lena entered the tent to applause, holding Miles's hand like he was the final rose on a reality show. She glowed. He looked straight ahead. They danced. People cried. The mother-son dance happened next. Vivian dabbed her eyes with a napkin, one hand resting delicately on Miles's shoulder. You'd think she raised him herself. Then came the cake cutting. The photos, the toasts. No one mentioned me. Not even once. A slideshow played on the far wall. Childhood photos of Lena. Baby Lena. Teen Lena. College Lena. Lena at the beach. Lena with a puppy. Lena graduating. Not a single shot of me. No joint photo. No family portrait. No boot camp photo. No graduation. Nothing that suggested I ever existed. Someone at the following table leaned over. Wow. Your sister was adorable. She still is, I said. The woman laughed, not realizing it wasn't a joke. I got up. Left the table. Walked outside where the air didn't smell like candles and expectations. By the fountain, 2 servers smoked quietly. One offered me a cigarette. I declined. He nodded as he understood. You Army? He asked. Yes. Thought so. You walk like someone who's done things. Everyone here walks like they've had things done for them. He grinned. Want me to sneak you a real drink? No need. I walked back toward the tent, paused before re-entering. Adjusted the hem of my jacket, brushed a speck off my shoulder. Inside, they were lining up for speeches. Lena stood near the head table, the mic already in hand. Her eyes met mine briefly before she started. She welcomed the guests again, thanked them for flying in, for showing up, for being part of her and Miles's story. Then she shifted. There's someone here today who I haven't always seen eye to eye with. Pause. Smiles from the crowd. Someone who's taken a very different path from me. While I built brands and helped companies grow, she was off. Well, storing things. A few confused laughs. One clear chuckle. She's worked in logistics, I think. Like, government storage or something. Super important, I'm sure. Louder laughs. And even though she's not always present in our lives, I guess. Family is still family, right? People applauded. A couple of heads turned toward me. Not out of respect, out of curiosity. They were looking at an old teacher who'd gotten weird on Facebook. I didn't move. Vivian stood beside Lena, wine glass raised. To family. Even the quieter ones. Another laugh. I felt the sting, but it didn't burn. Not anymore. Because, while they thought I was shrinking, I was calculating. I didn't come for cake. I came to be seen. And the part they didn't understand yet was coming next. I stayed standing. The applause died out, replaced by glassware clinking and a DJ calling people to the dance floor like it was just another Friday night. The mood lifted. The insult floated away, unchallenged, untreated, unbothered. And that's how they liked it. But I didn't move. I stood near the tent's edge, back straight, arms behind my back. Not stiff. Not angry. Just present visibly, unmistakably, undeniably present. Two women in pastel dresses danced to a throwback pop song. One pointed at me and whispered something into the other's ear. They laughed and spun around. Someone brushed past and muttered, "You don't have to be here, you know." I didn't answer because that part wasn't up for debate. Dinner continued. People returned to their seats, and the clatter of forks and the wine-induced volume of voices rose again. Laughter scattered in every corner of the tent. I scanned the room. Table after table of polished people, rehearsed smiles, hollow praise. Not one chair was empty except mine. I went to the back again, where a small bar had been set up for the overflow guests. The bartender glanced at my uniform and instantly straightened his posture. "What'll it be, ma'am?" "Club soda. No garnish." He poured it fast. Quietly. Like I'd just told him his CO was watching. As I took a sip, I caught sight of Vivian across the lawn. She was talking to an older man in a tailored navy suit. Probably one of the board members from the school foundation she kept bragging about. Her posture was loose and practiced. She laughed with just enough restraint to look rich. The man leaned in. She said something with a glance toward me. He looked. I looked back. He nodded politely. The kind of nod you give someone who might one day be helpful in a lawsuit. I walked back toward the tent. That's when Lena stepped up to the mic again. Hey, just a quick one while the DJ resets," she said, tipsy and glowing. "I want to tell y'all a funny story about Claire." No smile from me. No protest. Just stillness. So, when we were kids, Claire was obsessed with order. I mean, like, clinically. She labeled everything, her socks, her pencils. I'm surprised she didn't start tagging us with serial numbers. Laughter. The room ate it up. She once grounded herself. Like, literally said, I think I should be punished because she broke her own rule about putting books back in alphabetical order. More laughter. Claire always wanted control. That's why the military made sense, I guess. Lots of boxes to check. Now, the laughter has teeth. Some people clapped. She says she's in charge of logistics, but honestly, I think she's just the one who makes sure the toilet paper is facing the right way in government warehouses. A full roar now. Wine glasses raised like trophies. Vivian didn't interrupt. Neither did Miles. I didn't look away. Lena smiled wide. But seriously, Claire, I'm glad you're here. It takes a lot of courage to show up for something you weren't really part of. Mic drop. I stayed rooted. Not frozen. Anchored. Someone near me muttered, "Ouch." The DJ picked up immediately like it was all planned. A new track blasted through the speakers, and everyone flooded the dance floor as if that didn't just happen. I stepped back outside. The air was cooler now, less floral, more honest. The bartender from earlier was on a break by the fountain, lighting a cigarette with one hand and texting with the other. He looked up. Rough crowd. I nodded once. They've had years of practice. He offered me a smoke. I declined again. I walked the path along the outer edge of the venue, past the catering trucks, the porta units, and the valet tent where a teenager was trying to figure out how to drive someone's Tesla in reverse. Everything fake, everything fragile. I returned to the tent from the far side and stood just beyond the curtain line. Inside, Lena was on the dance floor, arms in the air, mouth open mid-laugh, surrounded by friends who clung to her spotlight like moths to a cell tower. Miles wasn't next to her. He stood to the side with a glass in hand, talking to a woman I didn't recognize. He looked, not bored, not tired, something quieter. Something more challenging to name. He looked up and found me. For the second time that day, his eyes didn't move. He held the stare longer than expected. Then he raised the glass an inch in acknowledgement. I didn't mirror him. I walked across the grass, through the tent's open flap, straight through the dance floor traffic without pausing, dodging, or a single care who had to move out of the way. And I went straight to table 14, where the real show was about to begin. I didn't sit. I stood behind the empty chair at table 14, both hands resting lightly on its back. The lights spun across the dance floor, catching on sequins and glassware, missing me entirely. But I didn't need the spotlight, I wore mine. From across the tent, Vivian was mid-laugh when she saw me. Her face paused, held in a half-smile that didn't know where to go. Lena saw her mother's expression first, then followed her gaze. The music kept going. But heads began to turn. I didn't say a word. I didn't raise a hand. I just stood there. Dress in blues, polished shoes, full medals, and ribbons aligned. Not a guest. Not a prop. Not someone stuffed behind a fern. I was the center frame whether they wanted me or not. Lena's laugh caught in her throat. The DJ dropped the track mid-beat. For the first time all day, there was silence. Miles stepped forward. He didn't hurry, didn't make a show of it. He just walked measured, calm until he stood between the crowd at the center crowd and me. Then he turned, faced the room, and said, loud enough for every corner to hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Claire Maddox." He didn't say it like a joke. He didn't say it like an apology. He said it like an order. And then he turned back to me, and did something no one expected. He stood at attention, straightened his back, and bowed. A proper military bow. Not theatrical, not awkward. A bow of respect. A bow of history. A bow you give when someone once pulled you out of hell and dragged your bleeding body onto a bird while rounds cracked overhead. The room stayed frozen. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Champagne slipped from a glass and shattered. No one moved. Vivian's wineglass tilted in her hand. Lena's face strained, pale against her highlighter and lipstick. I didn't nod. I didn't blink. I stepped forward, past Miles, through the center of the crowd, to the head table. I placed my name tag and written, misspelt in Lena's charger plate. And then I walked out. No one stopped me, no one called my name. But they would remember it. Every single one of them. I stepped into the night air, cool against my skin. The tension didn't follow me. It stayed behind, ricocheting off crystal and linen and unspoken family wounds. At the end of the path, I heard the music start back up. Softer this time, confused. Let them dance. They'd earned nothing else. I walked the gravel path behind the tent, the night pressing down like quiet armor. Every step felt sharper than it should have. Not painful, just alert. Like the air had shifted. I didn't go far. Near the edge of the property, past the decorative hedges and valet canopy, I stood by a fence overlooking a dark pond. Somewhere behind me, laughter tried to restart itself. Clumsy. Weak. Footsteps approached. I didn't turn. Miles stopped a few feet behind me. It wasn't supposed to go like that, he said. I know. A pause. He stepped beside me now, Just far enough to be in the same frame but not assume familiarity. I wasn't going to say anything. You didn't have to, I said. The bow did plenty. He exhaled through his nose. Not quite a laugh. More like a release. She told me not to bring you up during speeches, he said. She didn't have to. None of you ever do. He nodded slowly, reached into his jacket and pulled out something small. Folded. Crisp. He handed it to me without a word. I opened it. A photocopy. My service commendation from the Haditha operation. Dated, signed, with my full rank and serial. Miles had highlighted his name in the evac notes. I kept a copy, he said. Even after I left the service. You never said anything. I tried. 3 times, each time your sister changed the subject. Said you don't like attention. I sektu. I looked at him for the first time. She's not wrong, I said. But that wasn't her call to make. He nodded again. I'm sorry. The word didn't feel cheap. It felt earned. Why bow? I asked. Because I owed it to you. And because they needed to see it. Why now? Because that was the last time I was going to let them edit you out. A distant cheer came from the tent. Maybe the cake had survived after all. Miles took a breath. Do you remember what you said to me after they lifted me onto the bird? Number. You said, don't you dare waste this second chance. Sounds like something I'd say. He smiled slightly. I didn't know what it meant then. I do now. We stood in silence for a moment. No need to fill it. He didn't ask me to come back inside. I didn't ask him if he was okay. I should get back, he finally said. They'll notice I'm gone. They noticed the moment you bowed. He didn't argue. Claire, he said, turning halfway. Thank you. I didn't answer. He walked away. I stayed by the pond for another 5 minutes. Let the wind settle. Let the water go still again. Then I returned to the lot. Drove back to the hotel. No music. No headlights for the first 100 feet. I just wanted the dark for a moment longer. At the hotel, I hung the uniform again. Brushed the dust off the hem. Checked the seams. Then, I sat. Not because I was tired, because I'd earned it. And no one could take that seat from me for the first time in a long time. The knock on my door came just after midnight. 3 short taps. Sharp, not hotel staff. I opened it without asking who. Vivian stood in the hallway. Still in her dress, though the makeup was smeared and her hair had given up. I thought you'd be gone by now, she said. Why? I asked. You usually are. She didn't flinch. Just stepped in without being invited, like she had a right to. I don't want to fight, she said, standing stiff in the middle of the room. You came to the wrong place then. She sighed. Lena's upset. She'll survive. She said you humiliated her. No, I said. She did that herself. Vivian folded her arms. You showed up in uniform. You stood there like you were inspecting a barracks. You've always had to prove something. I didn't wear the uniform for her, I said. I wore it for me. You wanted attention. No, I said. I wanted recognition. They're not the same. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't raise you to be this cold. You didn't raise me at all. The pause hit harder than anything else. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees. Why did you keep me out? Vivian blinked. What? The slideshow, the speeches, the seating chart, the photos, the introductions, the name card. Why did you make it like I didn't exist? She didn't answer. I spent 20 years keeping people alive. But I couldn't earn a seat next to my own mother. It's not that simple. It never is. Until you want it to be. Vivian's voice cracked. You make it hard to love you, Claire. No, I said. I make it hard to ignore me. We stared at each other across a room that had never held this much truth. You're not the victim, she said. I know, I said. I'm the consequence. Vivian sat, finally. Not next to me. Across the room, on the chair by the window. You were always so intense, she said, voice softer now. Even as a kid, like everything mattered more to you than it did to us. It did, I said. Because I didn't have anything to fall back on. She looked out the window. I never knew what to do with you. You didn't have to do anything, I said. Just see me. Silence again. Then she stood. Lena will probably get divorced in 3 years. I blinked. What? She doesn't listen. She picks men who say yes too often. You were the only one who ever challenged her. I wasn't trying to. No. You were just being you. She walked to the door. Stopped. Claire. I don't know if I'll ever say the right things. You don't have to. She turned the handle. But you did look good in that uniform. I didn't reply. She left. The door clicked shut like a seal on something buried. I sat alone again. But it didn't feel like a failure this time. It felt like the first day of something. I could finally define myself. The next morning, I skipped breakfast. Not out of spite, just instinct. I didn't feel like sitting across from someone pretending yesterday hadn't happened. But I didn't leave Charleston either. By noon, I was back in uniform. Not because I had somewhere to be. Because I had something to finish. Miles found me before I had to knock. He opened the door of their honeymoon suite like he'd been waiting for it. He looked tired. Not hungover. Not groggy. Just worn like someone who'd fought a silent war in his own house. Come in, he said quietly. I did. The suite was absurd. Too many mirrors, too many surfaces that didn't serve a purpose. But he didn't offer me a seat, and I didn't look for one. She's not here, he said. Took the girls for brunch. I nodded. That's not why I came. He closed the door behind me. Not slow, not fast, just final. He stood still for a second, like trying to gauge the rules again. Then I said, I read the copy. He looked down. You kept that for 15 years? I almost burned it more than once. Why didn't you? Because I wasn't sure if I was still the man who owed you something, or just afraid of what it meant if I wasn't. I let that sit a moment. You knew what Lena was doing, I said. He didn't pretend. Yeah. The comments, the mockery, the seating chart, the edits. Yes. 1. You let her write me out. I tried not to, he said. But I didn't stop her either. And that's the problem. He nodded once. I took a breath. Do you love her? I married her. That's not the question. He didn't answer for a long time. I thought I did, he finally said. And maybe I still do, but not the way she needs me to. How's that? She needs someone who'll orbit her. I don't want to orbit anymore. He tilted my head. And now? He shrugged, helpless. Now I'm the guy who bowed in front of a room full of her friends. She's going to resent that forever. I know. Silence filled the space again, but it wasn't awkward. You've still got time, I said. To do right by the people who mattered. I already started, he said. I'm finishing the discharge paperwork for Captain Alvarez, and I called Monroe, offered to testify for her. That caught me. Monroe? She reached out last year. Said she was going to file a formal complaint. I ghosted her. Pretended I didn't see it. And now? I've already emailed the base legal team. I told them everything I knew. I looked at him again. You sure? I am now. That silence turned into something closer to resolution. Miles stepped forward, held out his hand. I didn't shake it. I saluted. He stood straighter than I'd seen him in a decade. Returned it. Then I left. Not because I was done, but because I had more to begin. By noon, I was standing outside my mother's door. She lived in a townhome too lovely for someone who insisted she hated attention. HOA-approved flowers out front. Flagpole. Wind chimes that didn't match the porch furniture. I didn't knock. I rang the bell. She opened the door slowly like she expected a solicitor. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. You again. You opened the door, I said. She stepped aside. Said nothing. I walked in. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and staged approval. Photos lined the wall. Lena's high school prom. Lena's engagement. Lena and Vivian at the women's luncheon. Not a single one of me. Not in uniform. Not out of it. Vivian closed the door. If you came to rehash last night. I came for one thing. She crossed her arms. I pulled a folder from my bag, set it on the glass coffee table, opened it. Inside were copies of old emails, military commendations, and personnel reports. 2 photos. One of me is pinning a medal for Sergeant Monroe. Another of me leading a folded flag handoff at Arlington. And one document with Vivian's email address at the top, dated 7 years ago. Subject: concern about Claire's stability. She blinked when she saw it. I found this in the appeals archive, I said. From the first time I was up for promotion. Vivian didn't touch the paper. That wasn't meant to hurt you. No, I said. It was meant to keep me invisible. She looked away. Said nothing. You sent this to my CO, knowing it would trigger an internal eval. You implied I was unstable. That I was obsessed with control. That I had no empathy. I never said unfit. But you knew what it would do. She sat down. Stiff. Almost calculated. I was scared. Of what? Of what would happen if you made the military your whole life. It already was, and I was good at it. But it made you hard. You stopped coming home. You stopped calling. I stopped coming where I wasn't wanted. She finally looked at me. You were different. I was excellent. That's not the same thing. Silence. Why didn't you just talk to me? I asked. If you were worried? Because you didn't listen, she said. You always thought you knew better. Because I did. And that scared me too. I let her sit with that. Then I handed her another page. A printout of my promotion to full colonel. The one she never responded to. Never acknowledged. I don't need an apology, I said. I don't need a hug. I don't need you to understand the job. Then what? I need you to admit you tried to erase me. She stared at the paper. Why would I do that to my own daughter? You tell me. I didn't know how to relate to you. You didn't have to relate, you had to respect. Another pause. I wanted Lena to have the spotlight, she said. She needed it more. Because she was weaker? Number. Because she couldn't build her own. I stood. You don't have to fix it, but from now on, you'll live with the truth. She didn't argue. As I left, I looked once more at the photo wall. She said quietly before I reached the door, "You were always too big for this house." And for once, she wasn't wrong. I didn't drive home right away. I went north instead, DC, where I belonged. Where no one needed to squint to understand the bars on my shoulder. 3 weeks later, I was back on base. I walked the halls like I always had. With purpose. Not pride. Just certainty. People moved aside. Nodded. Addressed me properly. Colonel Maddox. No hesitation. The project came together faster than I expected. A pilot initiative buried in the defense budget under strategic reintegration programs. I called it Project Red Line. Because every soldier has won the invisible threshold between dignity and damage, and too many crossed it alone. We took in cases no one wanted. Soldiers are being sabotaged from within by their own families, siblings who leaked confidential details, spouses who mocked PTSD in court filings, parents who called command chains to label their daughters unstable. I built a team from the ground up. Monroe joined first. Then Alvarez. Then 3 others who'd seen too much silence and not enough backbone. We didn't seek revenge. We created a record. Our mission was simple. You don't have to explain your service to those who benefited from your absence. 6 months in, we had over 70 active cases. Quiet ones. Discreet. But something shifted every time we filed a report, submitted a complaint, or got someone reassigned to a safer unit. We weren't erasing the damage. We were drawing a boundary. On the anniversary of Haditha, I was asked to speak at a national security symposium. I wore the same uniform from the wedding. Same medals. Same cut. Same weight. The room was full of flags and brass and too many politicians pretending they knew how sand feels in your lungs. I didn't read the script. I told them what it was like to be forgotten on purpose. Not by enemies. By blood. I told them silence wasn't noble. It was corrosive. I told them service doesn't stop when you hang the uniform. It stops when people start treating your sacrifices like decorations instead of proof. Afterwards, a young lieutenant came up to me. Maybe 24. Female. Eyes sharp. My parents told me I joined to escape being ordinary, she said. I smiled. Did you? No, she said. I joined so I'd never have to apologize for being more than they expected. She understood. And that was enough. Later that week, I got a letter. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Lena's. Inside, just one line. I married a man you trained. Maybe I should have learned from you too. No apology. No explanation. But I didn't need one. Because by then, I had built something they couldn't laugh away. Not a spotlight. A platform. Not a speech. A record. Not a scene. A standard. And not a grudge. A name they'd never forget again. Colonel Claire Maddox. And I didn't need them to say it. Because now, the world already did. Some revenge stories don't come with fire, they come with quiet standards and unshakable presence. When family drama becomes public, and silence tries to bury the truth, sometimes the loudest answer is just standing tall. If stories like this speak to you, hit that subscribe button. We dive deep into real stories of quiet power, personal reckoning, and how honor survives in the messiest places. You're not alone in this. Join us for more.